I'm here in the middle of the day at Jekyll Island in the bright sun. The sun is finally out and it's actually warm enough that I could take my shoes off and walk in the water. The water itself is kind of cold, but you just get used to it, just like, anything else. Today is a very bright day. A lot of people avoid shooting at midday in the bright sun in the harshest light of the possible day, where shadows are just basically straight underneath you. But I think that's a bad practice to just avoid an entire part of the day. You just have to figure out how to get the right photos. So in this video, I want to go over a couple tips about shooting in the bright, harsh sunlight. And hopefully by the end of it, you're like, okay, let me go try that. And I think at the end of the day, you'll be a better golden hour, blue hour shooter if you can also shoot in the harsh day. The colors are very harsh, not very vibrant, and there's just a lot of overhead light, which isn't always flattering to subjects or in general. It's just very harsh and over the top. Shadows on the eyes, whatever it might be. I'm in nature, so the big thing is it's hard to not overexpose your images sometimes and then expose it right so that everything's not just like a silhouette. And that's really why people aim for golden hour and blue hour, because you can do a little bit more and have a little bit more even exposures. Well, one thing I'd say is you just need to lean into the conditions that you're in. If there's a lot of shadows and a lot of contrast, lean into that. Find out how to use that to create a nicer composition. Does that mean you'll lose some details? Potentially, but maybe you can live without those details and still create a pleasing image. And maybe you can consider the contrast that's present in the world within your frame as the subject and try to frame it like that. Sometimes when I think of it that way, I'm able to create better compositions and really maximize what I'm actually seeing in a way that's better than if I was just like, oh, I gotta get rid of this dark part and leave some empty part, or I don't even know what, and then just end up with something kind of unbalanced and in not a purposeful or good way. The harsh lighting here is not really hiding anything from us. There's no real shadows to hide anything. So we really have almost everything in view and visible. So my foreground objects aren't anymore hidden in shadow. They're here. There's gnarly branches, but they're bright, they're visible. And I can still use those in order to frame the tree out in the water amongst the waves that is very visible and contrasting against the blues of the sky and of the water. You can see there's a couple of little birds on the tree as well. And so I think this is a very good example of you're not going to lose detail and intrigue and visibility in a time when there's harsh sunlight. You can still create deep images that have something interesting that draws the eye in. Harsh sunlight is also very good for details because everything is very well lit. Here we have some shadows that are covering parts of the image, but what I'm focusing on is these trees and the different color of the water washing under this tree. You have the blues that are being hit by the sky and like a lot more volume of water that are a little bit more blue deeper in the image. But then we have the shallower water that's really just washing up on the sand at the bottom and being interrupted by this tree in what I think is a very interesting way. way. Because the sunlight is so harsh and bright at this moment, you're not really going to get this sort of color contrast between water in the same few feet at a different time of day. And taking an image like this helps me decide how I want to frame images or what colors I want to look for times of day where there are more vibrant colors like sunset or sunrise. Vice versa, you could use the blown out sky or whatever it is. Here I've got a lot of sand. It could be the sand. You could use that to isolate your subject, create like a nice blank background, almost a canvas, if you will, to put your subject on. That's another thing I like to do, especially in clear, bright days, is use the sky as just a basic backdrop, and then you can have kind of isolated subjects, and it's pretty cool. I mean, the sun is beating down on this tree, this very wet tree that has all these little water drops on it. That's making all the details here pop so much more. And this like little piece of bark that's holding on against the smoother part of the tree covered in water. It's just very sparkly and it really catches the eye at this time of day. I think it's quite beautiful. It's even, and it allows us to focus on what the image is actually about. You know, you have to keep your exposure, relatively low and your shutter speed relatively fast, low ISO, different things like that to make sure you're not completely blowing out every image. It's kind of hard to expose sometimes, especially if you're shooting film or something, but just pay attention to your settings and don't consider the bright day a time of day that you just absolutely can't shoot. There's plenty of ways to use this as a way to practice your composition, to practice your framing, to practice what you actually want to get. And then if you can really practice that and really feel comfortable in that way, you can come back when it's golden hour, blue hour, whatever, and you'll have an extra set of skills that will help you do better at those times of day as well. Hopefully some of these tips were helpful and inspired you to go out and shoot in the middle of the day when it's so bright. A lot of people don't because they have work, and that is totally fair. I often do as well. But I'm out here now, and I think I'm pretty satisfied with some of the stuff I'm getting, and hopefully it's been beneficial to you guys as well. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more photography content. I've been Tony King. See you in the next one. Peace.